Speaker view and record, yeah.
Okay, so we are now recording. Welcome everybody to what looks like a great launch for Shape Taking, new book by Elana Wolff. We are going to use an unusual structure for this, which Elana will explain, but each member of the Long Dash group is going to join in the reading at some point. Elana, I suspect, is really well known to most of you, so I'm not going to read the whole biography from her book, but she's the author of 7 collections of poetry and a collection of essays on poems, a collection of Ringa with the late Malka Lidovitz, a limited edition chapbook with Susie Petersiel-Berg, and co-translated with Menachem Wolff, poems from the Hebrew by Jorg Mordecai Langer. She has taught and she's won awards for Swoon and an earlier book as well. So the award-winning Elana Wolff, she's now going to take over and tell you how this will go. And please, if you could mute your mics now, unless you're a participant.
Okay, thank you very much, John, for the introduction. And I want to say, those of you who have the book, here's the book. Can you see it?
Yes.
I'm peeking out over the top. Yeah, we'll see that there's a little synopsis on the back cover and a lovely blurb by John Oughton himself, also by Annick McCaskill and Adam Saul. But I do want to say just a few words about the book, Shape Taking. Most of the poems in Shape Taking were written in the pandemic or on the threshold of it, and they reflect my responses to the strangenesses of the world we're living in. So the meshing and the permeability and the in-betweenity, if you will, of things. The expression taking shape means to assume a definite or a distinctive form, to develop and become manifest. So there's process in it and something of an inner force and elements of randomness, perhaps. And my title, Shape Taking, flips the idiom. It acknowledges the flux and the process and the murkiness of in-betweenity. And for me, it also injects something of a free hand, an element of choice and personal autonomy in the work of change and transformation. And this might now be a radical idea that we have autonomy and the ability to decide things regarding our transformations and changes in life. So freehand or not, there's tension, there's mystery, there's ongoing struggle, and there's longing. So I'm going to start by reading 2 poems in the collection, and after which I'll be alternating with my colleagues in the Long Dash group, who are and have been for a very long time a close part of my development as a writer of poetry. So each of the Long Dashes will read one of my poems from the collection, and then also a poem of their own that resonates with mine. So I'm going to start with the first poem. For those of you who have the book, it's on page 11, and it's titled How Alteration Works. And this is a poem of connectedness, interconnectedness, and the perviousness of things. Here it is, How Alteration Works. Fence and gate, the swing and hedges, blue, the biophilia blue in green, bird poop, white as I in Edelweiss. Conscience, can you cogitate on personhood dispersed? Identity with any eyes? This woman mirrored in the sink. She washes hands, they feel like scales and fins, the gills of kinship. Can't tell you quite how alteration works. Treadmill whirring in the basement, near almost as hearing sea in a shell, real enough to leak. We take to reading K aloud in various translations. Eventually, we fall asleep and dream and let our souls go. Slumber for as long as they want. The duvet cover soft as rumpled lumps of flanneled flesh. So the K there is Franz Kafka, who is my longtime dead mentor. And now I'm going to read a second poem before I turn over to John. And this piece is on page 15, for those of you who are following along. It's called Watching Netflix. And I have to say that during the pandemic, I, like many others, got into this binge watching of programs on TV and the various services. I think I'm pretty much over it now, but this poem was written in the thick of it. And I should say that there's a little portion in the narrative. It starts in the present of the poem, and then it's the external narrative, and then it flips to an inner kind of stream of consciousness, and then flips back out to the present of the poem. Watching Netflix. We sat last night on the sofa watching Messiah, wondering whether Mehdi Debi, the actor in the title role, is playing it real or slant. He has the long black hair, the past and future face, a backlit glow, the yellow robe, and multitudes attending. A sudden sandstorm sweeps the foe as if by superhuman hand. Is it his or God's? And does he believe it? The part of us that's soft and sinking into the sofa's dip lends us for the story to suspend our disbelief. The hero tells his foil, the wide-eyed agent who plays for the CIA, things about herself she thinks he could only know from intel. Say what you will, there's something happening. Radio bursts, plink extragalactic war drones, infrasonic memes, and oceans rising holographic waves. I'm thinking from the sofa that the thermostat is set too low, but neither of us feels like rising to raise it. When the episode ends, we let the TV load the next one, even though we're freezing, and dinner has congealed in grease on our plates. Suddenly, your hand slips through my skin like spider silk, fine and light, diaphanous, already gone, as if I've interrupted a snowball's chance. So there at the end, I'm playing a little bit with a cliche. And at this point, I'd like to turn over the book to John Outen, who will be reading a piece titled Pulloveria. Now, Pulloveria is on page 18. This piece actually comes from before the pandemic, but it fits right into this book in terms of its tone and slight absurdity. I should say that there is actually a shop in Vienna that's called Pulloveria, without the accent aigu that I give it to the E. And it sells only pullovers. So John, take it away with Pulloveria, and then you'll continue to read your partnered piece.
Okay, thanks, Elana. Great poems to start off with, by the way. I realized I've been remiss as a host. I forgot to say something. Those of you who already Zoom a lot will know this, but if you're new to Zoom, there's a chat box. You go mouse down to the bottom of the screen and you'll see chat. And if you turn that on, you can type in comments or questions while you're listening to the reading, and we'll look at those and respond if necessary at the end after the reading's done.
Okay.
Okay, so Pulloveria. There was too much writing, most of it drivel. People slept through sentences, driveling in their dreams. Talk was blather also, although it had the slight advantage of providing psychic hygiene, if only to the speaker. No one took much notice of the scribbling and blithering, except to scribble blither back. Singing all but ceased, apart from jingle jangle mixes. Music reduced to mash. And snow came down as rigmarole outside a shop that offers pullovers only in 7 sizes, 27 shades. So that was
Thanks for
Alana's.
that reading.
Oh, thank you. And this is my partnered one. It has, the connection is more in the tone and maybe the sense of humor than the subject matter. I drove, once pandemic restrictions eased somewhat, I drove out to the Maritimes because I have a lot of family there, and I couldn't get the music working in the car. So I got very interested in the bizarre road signs you see along the Trans-Canada Highway through Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, etc. So this is called Road Signs. Attention moose shambles by, bearded, ill-built, and fly-bitten. All she wants, your interest, care, your remarking on her remarkable size, velvet ears, unknown longings. A dot balanced on a vertical bar, upside down exclamation mark. The simply iconic sign man hikes with a smaller bar staff, hits a dot with bar club, rests under a circumflex, all he'll ever need. In Quebec, place names exhaust the hagiographies. Deposit these near Ontario's border. St. Telesphore, patron of travel by mushroom. St. Polycarp, who loved his many fish. And the aesthete of exotica, Saint-Zotique. New Brunswick towns seek the tiny edge that might stop a tourist. World's longest covered bridge, French fry capital of the world, site of New Brunswick's last fatal duel, museum of the potato. Surveilling all this sign foolery is the village of happy Buddha saints, St. Louis du Ha Ha, whose sign fails to mention it's the only place name in the world with 2 exclamation marks.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. John always injects some humor into the poetry, into the group, and we thank him for that. I love that, rests under a circumflex. Yeah, and the double exclamation on the ha ha. Okay, so our next reader is going to be Sheila Stewart. And Sheila will start by reading my poem Backup, which is on page 16. Backup starts in the present, and it's an image out there in the world that sparks a memory. So it starts again in the present, flips into a rather distant past, and then comes back to the present again. And this is something I often do in poems. I flip through an image, and I'm guided by the image into writing the piece. So Sheila will write that, will read this piece, and then she will read her own piece, Flick Flick.
All right. Thank you so much, Elana. This is really fun. Wonderful to read after you and John, and thank you everyone for coming. So Backup by Elana Wolff. Backup. It's a snowy morning. Birds in their slick jackets, blackest delete keys along the fence summon a distant winter. I, in my wool toque, running between trees down to the gully, am bumped by an icy shrub. It takes me in. I hide inside. Blue icicle light like broken mirror fingers and a mitten hard in the shape of a bird. At first I think it is one. I feel my stubbornness setting into crust. Frosty sediment, stillness, and thinking no one will find me until I'm stiff. Then the backup thought of no one ever coming to look. My breath, a fibril, spirals into a snake entranced by a master. Black boots, slick jacket, I who can blink to break the trance, stay silent. I who can say, I'm here, let's go, stay numb and hunkered down. It's a snowy morning. In this moment, I want to slip into what it takes to lift.
Thank you.
Sheila, sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt. If you can move your mic away from your mouth a little bit, it's
a
kind
bit-
of popping. Just,
It's a bit loud.
yeah,
Yeah. How's that?
that's better.
Is that better? Okay. Thanks for letting me know. All right. So this poem, Flick Flick, in this I'm outside, as Elana is, and there is some going back in time. Here we go. Flick Flick. Your tail takes flight. Feather boa, sassy plume. I've nothing for you. This bread and cheese for my tum. Your sparky black bead eyes. Such a cheeky, cocky one. Oh, squirrely. How you and your mates leap from bent apple to cedar to Norway maple. You take one bite from each small fruit, drop them on us below. Run the wire with reddest tomatoes, dance your tail at our chagrin. How your kind played and tumbled up and down the silver maple. And when it fell, how did your ancestors manage? Babies in the nest. Do you remember that fall or any other? Are you blessedly free of mother and father? Who am I to address you, mightier forager?
Thank you. Thank you, Sheila. I love that line. Yeah. Do you remember that fall or any other? Of course, the fall is doing double duty there, at least double duty. Okay, so these the next two pieces are poems that were written in India just prior to the spread of the virus across the globe. My husband and I had really the opportunity to take a trip of a lifetime to India. This first piece that I'm going to read is really about the beauty and the squalor juxtaposed, which is what we experience deeply in India. The great contrasts of being there. And here I share a number of different experiences that are all mishmashed up together. And it's titled Mulling It from a Room in Ranthambore. Now as near as ghee and neem, the hands of a small dark woman kneading my skin, which reads the hands as sweet. I don't know how she knew to press my temples. The air, a more than heavy drum, and frangipani leaning into paradise, and Gouda trees. Thank you for the books, Spine and Block. I've brought them along. These charmers with their cobra shows earn more than guides and IT guys together, claims Hussein. It's hard to disagree, to comprehend the constant disproportion. This life, this is the life. Faces all lit up to see a tiger in the wild, cool in his magnificence, aloof before the kill. The beauty of the Taj will make you weep, says Srinivas. We're nearer death today than we were last night. And old Yamuna slowly flowing, pelicans and egrets. Maybe it makes some sense why peacocks cry kyow like cats. At Agra, beggars rush in with their bloodied stumps for money. The rule, we're told, is keep your gaze on the train. Watch the windows, lock the doors, don't let the langurs in. What of the endless jockeying for position and attraction? Who will sit by whom at table? Who will be in the ring, the jeep? Who will be the subject and object of shots? Of course, the shots there, I mean photographic shots, but the shadow of the other is there as well. And this second piece, Game Drive, really speaks to the beauty, the beautiful side of India, and a moment of wonder, actually, of magical realism, or else real magic. And Merle Noodleman will read this piece, Game Drive, and then her poem. Thank you, Merle.
Thank you, Elana. Game Drive. A tiger appeared in the clearing. He caught our breath. I felt the animal nearness, my eyes as big and round as his, not vertical slits like cats. That was half the wonder. We photographed and filmed him from the Jeep. He cocked his leg at us and sprayed. A faint basmati rice smell wafted over. What did we know? My skin. I noticed first my hands turned tiger striped, pale gray. Later, back at camp, the stripes migrated to my chest, where they are kept. Like Elana's Game Drive, my poem also reflects on transformative encounters with the natural world. In my case, the encounter is indirect through the medium of Emily Carr's evocative painting of a vast forest enfolding a white church. And my poem is entitled Primeval Piety for Church at Yukwat Village, originally entitled The Indian Church by Emily Carr. Bear witness, a white church kneels in the wild heart of antiquity's forest, its nuanced dark. Grand leaves undulate, fan a hallowed presence. Folding currents, a riotous blue-green, form the soaring rib vaults for nature's chapel, wherein these towering souls recount the ages with sighs of lamentation. Silos of light disperse, then disappear. Thank you, and congratulations to you, Elana.
Thank you, Merle. Thank you for that beautiful reading and these gorgeous images, the riotous blue-green and the soaring rib vaults and the silos of light. I can see also Emily Carr's painting, that iconic painting before my eyes as you read. Thank you. Thank you. So now I'm going to switch gears and read a poem about an in-person reading. Something that most of us haven't been able to engage in since the before time. And this piece was chosen by editor Suvankam Tamavongsa for inclusion in Best Canadian Poetry 2021. So it feels like a bit of a highlight in the book. And it speaks to the mixed feelings of admiration and despair that we've probably all had at a reading. And it's titled, I Really Liked Your Reading Last Night. You came alone and sat at the back of the room. We gave each other a friendly hug and chatted before the show. Your breath smelled thinly of gin. There are a lot of good poets, you said, and smiled by way of slant reply after I'd commended your performance. It's slant like that that makes one feel disclosed. You didn't introduce your poems, just read them in a modulated tone. I embedded. hunkered down, a foreign correspondent in a war zone. I wanted a book. You didn't have one to sell. We both had salvation in pieces we read. I couched it Salvia divinorum, as in the psychoactive plant. You used the word straight up, like you had earned it. Okay. And you need not ask me who the poem is about, because I won't tell. In fact, it's not really about any one person, it's a composite. so there. And now I'm going to ask Kath McLean to read a poem. It's titled The Randomness of Hearsay. But before Kath reads, I just want to make a pitch for my group. For the Long Dash, many of the poems in this collection were workshopped with the Long Dash group and have benefited from the group's input. And this piece, which is really about the soul and the poetic device of swerve or switch that I often use in poetry, benefited specifically at the end from a suggestion by Kath. And I remember it because it was so incisive and it required me to make a real big brain shift, which thankfully I did. So the end of this piece is thanks to Kath. So she'll read The Randomness of Hearsay, and then she'll read one of her own wonderful poems. So Kath.
Thank you, Elana, and congratulations. Awesome.
Thank you.
I remember the conversation about your last poem, by the way.
Oh.
I won't tell. Okay, this is The Randomness of Hearsay. According to reports, she left her husband for a shut-in who was found to have a pancreatic growth. According to the follow-up, she fled the city after he passed, flew to a place where no one knew her number, Madagascar, Montenegro, Gauzo, Djibouti. The randomness of hearsay is a man in thin pink knits. Some say swerves, a synonym for switch. And that may be, but they don't behave the same way in a poem. Some say poems are the soul and must come through the throat. Metaphysical claims don't get you shelter. I swear I saw her crossing the freeway naked the other day, hair in the air like helo red electric. Where in the hell was she headed? What was she thinking? The switch turned off. And
Thank you.
taking the whimsical, I'm going to riff off of Nancy Drew's Twisted Candles and pick up on the weirdness. This one is called Michelangelo's Finger. How white her dress, the dove's wing flew into the waxing light. Lilies sleeping by the bed woke and shook an orange. Folding stars, flecking air, slick. I slid on air's oiled wishes, whale-sized wants, yearning another. What happens next depends on smidgens. Rain's heft, strewing pebbles, gamblers' dice. Throw one, you're lucky. Two, we all go home. Michelangelo pointing his finger fluffs time's pitch. I wanted a handkerchief to smudge memory, to blot its sound, its laboring breath. September curdled, choked sunlight soft as melting candles. Buckling my knees, I fell and prayed as never before. Knowing its risks, I learned the weight of longing does not always end.
Thank you, Kath.
Thank you, Elana.
The weight
Awesome. I
of
think
longing. Yeah, the weight of longing does not always end. Not always, and maybe not ever.
Not ever.
Yeah, maybe not ever.
Oh, this world.
Yeah. So this this next piece is something of a love poem for my husband. I do write some of these kinds of poems from time to time, more now, as we're into decades of marriage. And this piece brings together two anecdotes that were waiting for, I guess, for a hook to be able to be included in a poem. And I hope that they are brought together, if not seamlessly, at least with some sense. This piece has a heads up. It contains a word that you're probably not familiar with. It's chalaza, or more correctly pronounced kalaza, plural, either chalazas or kalazi, depending if you're going to, be correct about it. And the chalaza or kalaza is that little white springy thing that connects the egg yolk to the shell. So that word is in the poem, and it's titled "The Day You Called Me Flashbulb Head." The day you called me flashbulb head in jest, I might have been struck down by Oak Bank Pond and goose poop green on the walkway washed away, leaves lashed down and plastered to our chests. Run for it, you hollered at me into the force of the storm, the kind that when the lightning strikes smells eggy. Home and soaked to our pubic bones, we shed our shoes, our soggy socks, and peeled the cottons off. God could have chosen to make us other than flesh. Don't look at me, I chafed. My mole is showing. Seriously, the body fraught, resistant, pertinacious. Some of the old stuff sticks, despite. I'm thinking of kalazi, the stringy twists of tissue that join the egg yolk to the shell. In home ec, 7th grade, Miss Din taught us how to remove them with our thumbs and index fingers. You don't want stringy white things in your cakes, girls, or your cookies. She never called them chicken spit or the start of a baby chick, but we gave each other the knowing look and giggled. Some of the old stuff sticks. I still removed the kalazi from every egg. We saw a fox on the opposite sidewalk, jogging along in the squall, gripping a giant egg in his jaws. By the size of it, that's a goose egg, you yelled out to me in the din. Yes, I bellowed back. So those kalazi would be gross. So the gross means icky, right? Icky, but it also means big. And now I'm going to turn the screen over to Mary Lou Sutar-Hines, who will read Jellyfish. And Jellyfish is another wonder poem, also a water poem of hope for changing states. And there is a name in this poem, Sandra, and I have to say Sandra refers to Sandra Berry, who is my longtime pen pal from Nova Scotia. We've never met, but she's a very faithful pen pal, and she's offered me many words of wisdom over the years. She's not here today because she does not Zoom. Okay, so Mary Lou, are you here?
I am here.
Oh, here you are. Okay, Mary Lou, Jellyfish, and then Mary Lou will read her beautiful piece, Deepwater Benediction.
All right. Jellyfish, wading in and eager to lower our bodies into the sea. We swam every day till they came. The water almost hid their flimsy tissues, their jelly heads. The lifeguard saw them quivering in the ripples and blew his whistle. They'd gathered into thousands at the beach, attracted, we were told, by our human smell, if one can be attracted without a brain. Concentrate and scramble the algorithms, Sandra says. Take your dreams and wishes into sleep. Lace wing green, the lot of them, this uncanny, subtle color. I thrilled to the thought of being touched and stung, the supernatural beauty of translucence, and the wonder, every hurt reversed. That's such a beautiful poem, Elana, and I'm delighted to read one of my own. The one that I'm partnering is Deep Water Benediction, and it's from my 2019 collection, published just before that pandemic hit, more or less. And there are a couple of Jamaican references in the poem, so I'll just quickly mention them. Rockford Springs is a mineral spar in Kingston. The Flat Bridge is one of Jamaica's oldest bridges, and it was built by the Spaniards. And the Rio Cobre and the Martha Brae are rivers. And I'll just put my my trusty earphone back in. Seems to be slipping. Deep Water Benediction. Finally, no coral breath or sand, no sun, just water's marbled urgency, a body's longing, still deep enough for drowning. Alternate days, she seeks out words, gathers them close beneath her ribs, slips into page, adrift in memory's wash. Sundays at the Rockford Springs, Flatbridge spanning Rio Cobre's gorge, the Martha Brae. Each night, mercy's prayer, absolutions, ashes, salt, and wine. Those crystal cloud insinuations, blue holes, pools, and waterfalls, where a river goes to ground. From the doorway, both rooms, the cats curled into dreams, crimson pillows, silent waiting, water's lustrous language like skin.
Thank you, Mary Lou. Beautiful reading, and your images are so lustrous. And again, this theme of longing,
Right.
this recurs. And what's very interesting is that we didn't coordinate these poems, but there's this thread that connects us, which is quite common to our group. And I find it enlivening and fascinating, quite wonderful, actually. So this next poem that I'll read is titled Fall Constellations, and it's one of two poems that I wrote for a prompt. Before the pandemic, I didn't write any poems for prompts. And then came the pandemic, we were all cut off, and I started receiving prompts. This one was written for a prompt at ARC Poetry Magazine for the award of awesomeness. I suggest that you check out the guidelines. It's worth checking out and submitting to. So I submitted this one last November, and it won, to my surprise. So I got a little bit of money, part of the kitty. But the amazing thing is I want a doodad. Okay, they call it a doodad. I want a doodad, and it was a real live dead butterfly, which I have under glass. So this is fall constellations. The maples are communicating even when we're not. The tree we thought was dying came back, perhaps with subterranean help from its neighbors. Do we master our plantness, our animality? Do we find a balance point for our heavy, frenzied heads on the movable fulcrum? Ruin is normal, a corvid thing. The blackbird caws its song, the yellow leaves in the maples keen. A philia thing, like broadband interconnection. I woke up feeling queasy today, as if I'd lifted weights and labored heavily in my sleep. The black on my chest, a fun fur cat, a throw for the bed with a flap underneath for a hand. Animated yellow eyes, its tail caressed my face like a simulacrum. Like last night's Scorpio moon, a yoke through dirty purple stratus clouds. Horizontal bodies, balancing anvils. So that's fall constellations. And next, Brenda Clues will read another of my my pieces. Actually, it's a piece for art. It's titled Painting from the Periphery. And this piece, like a number of my poems, owes a debt of gratitude to Regina Couric, teacher, artist, and mentor par excellence. I took an art course with Regina in 2020 that gave rise to two paintings mentioned in this piece, the Libra piece and the Aquarius piece. So Brenda will read this, and then she will read her poem in resonance. Brenda. Brenda, are you here?
Yeah, hi. It's a beautiful book, Elana. I've enjoyed reading it so much. It's just such a collection of pieces that really is pandemic in its own way, because many of the pieces take place in more domestic situations. You know, yes, which is what we were doing day after day. Yeah, during lockdown. Okay, so I'm reading Painting from the Periphery, and I just find it quite a mind-blowing poem, you know, as an artist. So, and the two pieces that are mentioned in here are both beautiful pieces that we might be able to add after the Zoom to the recording, I hope. Great. Painting from the Periphery. I thought the illness might be what we get for scorning well enough. A certain sensitivity comes along with being sick. Now that I'm getting used to losing footing in the world, the Libran scales are evening, at least in zodiac art, where one can render them equal, like the sign. Our artistry lies in what we designate. I'm learning how to paint from the periphery with will. A chill wind blew in with the month and hailed a wave. Aquarius, the water bearer, looking to his spill. If he had a voice to speak the query in his eyes, he might say, when the judgment's done, will we be enough to see what's coming? Whoa, it's amazing. So thank you for letting me read that beautiful poem, Elana. It's got so many depths. And I'm going to read Glass Blower, which is a poem about another art, glass. Plunges a handheld pole into sand from an ancient ocean bed in the interior of the country. Furious alembic, thousands of degrees, melting, swirling color, fire set, forging an inner glow. In days quiet, cool, leaves unwrap and flutter, buds fresh and opalescent green discover the sun, petals unfurl from my head, a flower woman lying under earth, the furnace of the sun. I didn't step onto a shore strewn with tiny natural glass bits. It moved through my vision and fell in beads glittering on the beach. Alchemies of light, embedded light, the density of earth. You shine through me like sun shines through crystal blown by the glass blowers holding the melting. Can I become the glass you look through, illumining the world with your light? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brenda. I love the visionary way you read. And also the way that we ask the question at the end, how this time does give rise to many questions and certainly not as many answers. So thank you for that. So we're coming toward the end of the collection, and I'm going to read a piece. It's one of actually the last poems that I wrote before I sent this manuscript off for consideration, and it addresses the work of finding one's way through the flux and the unexpectedness. And maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway, that this has been a difficult personal year for our family because our daughter, who lives in Tel Aviv, gave birth to twins in January. One was born with a birth defect and he's coming along, but he still faces a lot of challenges even today. And so I read this with a prayer in my heart for little Vigo. And this piece is titled Jejun. This tongue was never altogether mine. I dreamt a guttural country, desert, mountains at the heart, and woke up parched. I put my ear to earth for an indication, heard a soundtrack. Every song I knew, I had to learn. How losing isn't opposite to winning. It's making space. One only sees the space in looking back. You were every hydrant that July I was on fire. Heat inside me, adolescent, green. What did you see? That value would eventually increase? That one day we would face the parent range? I speak of mountains. That language needs decoding and translation, whatever we speak. Where do dragons live? In castles. What do foxes eat? Gingerbread men. What's as soft as a preemie's wrinkled knee? The smaller wrinkled knee of the tinier twin. Jackals howled in the street last night beneath the baby's window. Creatures tempted out of the woods into the heart of the city. I heard them eating off their knives, licking the blades as if they were lips, like preternatural humans. I ran to grab the babies from their cribs. Okay, and now I'm going to introduce Clara Blackwood. I don't see you, Clara, but I trust you're here to read one of the final poems, and this one is titled Bring in the Seraphim. And Seraphim is a reference to the angelic attendants to God in the book of Isaiah. The word seraph comes from the Hebrew word for burning. So it's through these fire angels that Isaiah's tongue was purified in order to receive his mission, his prophetic mission. The seraphim in this poem have a more general application, but just so that you know what the source of that word is. So Clara will read Bring in the Seraphim, and then she will read an angel poem of her own. Are you here, Clara? I don't see you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, now I see you. Hi, Clara.
Hi. Congrats again on this beautiful collection. Yeah.
Thank you, Clara. Thank you.
So I will read Bring in the Seraphim, and it is on page 68 if anyone wants to follow along in their copy. Let them be regardful and alert. Have them apprehend the supplications. Let it not be said that minus wings they can't descend. Who says they have to be from up? They may be prone to ground, may prefer ambivalence to proofs. Proof may be an argument, a testament, or mood. For moodiness, anxiety, and guidance, bring them in. I once encountered hosts of long and gauzy footless figures, hovering like humans, horizontal over a wreck, poring over messages, encoding them, dispatching. I don't recall receiving any bodement, though, or tip, unless the meeting up itself was it. And I will read a poem that goes, really, I guess, similar subject matter of the otherworldly here, and it's called Xenial. This androgynous being has transcended, iris behind St. Michael, the rainbow's reflection on her mottled skin, not quite corporeal as she floats above a lake of fire, wings tending downward. A descendant of the Watchers, her kind joining the ranks of an angelic penal colony in the fifth circle of heaven. What would those wings be like to touch? White feathers crumple into charcoal at the slightest brush. Thank you, and congrats again, Elana.
Wow. So Clara, thank you for that so much. What would those wings be like to touch? Of course, we want an answer to that question and we don't get it. And I also heard a little echo of Kafka there, right? Oh. The angelic penal colony. Wow. So I thank you very much. I'm going to close with the last poem in the collection. And this is a poem that that came out of the pandemic, and I do actually reference the quarantine in it. It's one of the maybe only 2 poems that I actually reference the pandemic in. And it's a poem again that casts back in order to look into the future. So it's kind of like a back to the future, which is also, I guess, our current present. And it's titled vestigial, which is a kind of unusual word. It's like one of those atrophied or leftover organs. But in this poem, it refers to the back seat of this vehicle called the Karmann Ghia. I don't know how many of you remember or know of the Karmann Ghia, but it was fairly short-lived. It was a vehicle, a sports car that was manufactured by Volkswagen. I think in the 60s, probably ended manufacture in the early 70s, but we had one. And my sister and I rode in that back seat, that almost non-existent back seat. So there's a little bit of humor in this one. Vestigial. The billboard by the exit ramp read, Ready yourself to meet your maker. Call Jim. I looked to that sign whenever we passed it, never thinking to call. Jim is likely with his maker now. I was 9 or 10, Odette 6 or 7. Our father was driving the car and he's long gone. We want the poem to circle home like road trips into the city, like summer love and sun. Here we are in quarantine, and just like that, I'm casting back. Odette and I in the Carmen Gia, knees against our parents' backs, snug in the world, at least for a while. We played I Spy with my little eye. I spy something on a sign, I dangled meanly at Odette after Dad had passed it, so the answer could not be guessed. The game soon lost its gloss, but being in the car felt futuristic. Big buildings, fast traffic, people facing forward up to the minute in the streets. Odette and I in vectored memory. Hard, flat glare of sensing something coming. Outsized buildings, outsized lies, and men projecting shadows of their own implosion before them. Sisters window gazing from a blue vestigial seat. So that's it. That's the last poem in Shape Taking. Thank you, Long Dash, for being here for me and for reading. And thank you everyone for attending. It's much appreciated. And now I think we're going to break, maybe for a few minutes for people who have to dip out, have to either leave or make a visit to the washroom or get a drink. And then we'll have a talk back if anyone has any questions. I know there's been a constant stream of comments on the in the chat box, but I haven't been able to look at them. So I hope Brenda and John, you've had a look. I'll try to have a look now.
Yeah, I've been following them. Lots of compliments about the poetry and the readings. I suggest to the Long Dash writers, if you don't need a biology break, go to the chat box and just page through it. There might be something you might respond to, and then we'll start again in a couple of minutes.
I like that, John, biology break.
I'm going to go remove the strands from my egg white now, so I'll be right back.
Okay, I'll have a look here. Does this mean we can also turn our mute buttons off, Brenda? Yes. Does everybody turn off the mute?
Yep. Everybody can turn off their mutes.
Okay.
This is our social.
Okay, for people who yeah, I haven't had a chance to look at any of the comments because I was focused on the readings. Yeah, really nice. Thank you, everyone.
Hello, Elana. I had to turn everything. I had to turn things off. It's Mary Lou.
Oh, hi, Mary Lou. Yeah, because you were breaking up. Were you able to hear anything?
Not very much at first, but I tried and finally I got back on and it was fine. So I don't know what that's all about, but the last half hour has been just fine.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for joining from Halifax. It is Halifax, right?
It is Halifax, yes.
Oh, it's so good to hear your voice. You sound as strong and vital as ever.
Thank you. Well, I'm certainly enjoying myself this afternoon.
Oh, yeah, this is the good thing about Zoom, right? The good thing about Zoom is that it allows people to come together from across the world. Today, there are people from across Canada, I think in the States, and even on the other side of the pool. The ocean.
The pond.
I like this. Yeah, this is great. This is really, really nice.
Oh, Elana, can I say something? Is that
Yes.
Oh, yes, Rosemary. Now I can hear you. You're coming through crystal clear. I
Elana,
can
I'm
see your
writing to you.
face.
It is so beautiful. It was just so gorgeous, and I am so homesick. And I love you guys, and this Mel and John and Mary Lou, and thank you for allowing me to come into this Zoom meeting. And I just think
So, yeah.
you're all just so wonderful, and I'm amazed. I'm in awe at what I heard. It was so beautiful. Thank you, guys.
So what I didn't say, and I have to say this now, is that Rosemary Blake goes back to the very beginnings of the Long Dash group. And Rosemary, you invited me to come into the group back in, I think it was 2001 or 2. Maybe 2002.
We read
Yes.
together.
We read together, yeah, at the art bar.
At the art bar,
That's
and you
right.
said you belong to a group, and I said, would you like to come into our group? So I'm responsible for Elana.
Yeah, and so, yeah, and we were all together for, I guess it was, maybe, when did you go back? 2008?
2008, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so from 2002 till 2008, we were like buddies close.
Oh, we were, yeah.
And we still are,
Thank
Rosemary.
you. Elana, thank you for your beautiful email. These beautiful, beautiful poems. They're just stunning, just gorgeous. I have to get the book. Can you send me?
I am going to send you the book. I have to say that we also share a publisher.
Yes.
Ecstasis Editions. Thank you to Richard Olafsson and Carol Sokolov, the publishers, for creating really a beautiful book, I have to say.
Gorgeous cover there. That's so beautiful.
Yeah. So
I just want to say hi to John too, because John, you were terrific, and you launched my book way back in 2007.
Yes.
So,
Nice to see you again. And by the way, everyone, Rosemary is communicating from Australia. And I believe at about the time when the kangaroos wake up and start hopping around in the backyard.
you know what? I got up at 6 o'clock. So I could,
Oh,
We're very impressed, Rosemary.
Yeah.
It's lovely to see you.
Mary Lou.
Thank you.
Absolutely great.
Thank you. So I don't know if everyone is back from the break who wants to be back from the break. And if anyone has a question to any one of us, actually, there's so many lovely comments here. So thank you for your comments, but I don't actually see a question.
that's because your poetry explained everything. We're still trying to take it in.
That's for sure not. In fact, we asked quite a few questions, not just in my poems, but there are a number of questions in the others' poems as well. So I think this is really a time of questioning where we do have broad questions and not enough answers. Really, a lot of puzzlement. Really, a lot of puzzlement. So.
If anyone out there wants to comment or ask a question, just unmute your mic and go down to the lower left where it says your mic is muted and unmute it. Just try not to do it all at once because we've still got 25 people on here.
I'm just going to unmute and say goodbye because I have to get breakfast for people.
Great to see you, Rosemary.
Thank
Lovely
you for
to see
coming.
you, Rosemary.
Thank you for
All the
coming,
best.
Rosemary.
All the best,
Lovely to see
Rosemary.
you. Thanks for being here from
Thanks for
Australia.
being here.
Yes, thank you. And I will send a book. There.
Well, I have a question for you, Elana. What's your secret to being so productive and producing such great poems on a regular basis? Do you have a routine? Like, are you a morning writer, a midnight writer, or do you? Yeah, I'm just wondering if there is any particular routine or secret that you can share.
Okay, so there's really no routine. I'm just a sort of anytime writer. I'm always writing. So I've got little slips of paper lying around pretty much in every room of the house, in my car. in other people's cars. And I'm always just taking notes and working at things. And when the poems are not coming in, I'm revising or I'm reading. And I think I've said before that sometimes reading has to count for writing on the days when the writing is not flowing. But I think the main thing is just to be disciplined, because if we would wait for the muse with the capital M, she or he or they might not visit us. So I think it's just the discipline. And the long dash group is great for that, because we can meet every week if we have a quorum of 3. And that way, even if we don't have a new poem, we can bring an old poem, or we can just be there. So I think that the camaraderie of the group is a big part of it. You know, that's huge. But during the pandemic, now the pandemic has had, I think, it's really had a different effect on different people. Some people say that they've been able to write nothing or next to nothing during the pandemic, but because I've had a lot of challenges, personal challenges, I think that one of my ways of dealing with that is to write through it or to paint through it. You know, so there's been more painting, and there's painting poems in the collection. So that's about it. I don't think there's a secret, Clara.
Okay.
I thought you were going to say,
that.
I thought you were going to say that Kafka appears you in a dream and says, "Get on with that writing, Elana."
Well, yeah. So Kafka, yeah, you know, he was famous for not finishing a lot, leaving things unfinished. But even with that, he worked persistently and often at night. And he referred to it even as, you know, as a military exercise. Right, of just doing it, you know, of forcing oneself to do it. And I think that might, if there is a secret, that might be it. Just doing it, even when what you are writing feels like crap, you know, because there's going to be something
This is
in
often
it
the
that you're
case.
able to pull out. What was that, Kat?
Definitely, there's empathy there.
That is often the case with my own writing. You just kind of go, wow, am I really capable of writing that? Sometimes I astound myself by it. Just go, wow, that's just really bad.
Yeah. I find that.
Look forward
like
to your
that.
Kafka book, Elana.
Yeah, so I do have a Kafka book coming out. I have a contract, so it means I'm working to a deadline. Wow, that will also force
Awesome.
you to write. If you have a deadline, then you just gotta get off your butt and do it. And that's for 2023. So I do have some time, but that's a big project, so it just requires a lot of just being at it. You know.
Yeah.
The nice thing about poetry, though, is that it is compact and it is short, so that you can sit down, unless it's an epic poem, right? You can sit down and actually write it, you know, over some hours or a few days, and come back to it, which is really not the case with novels and or creative nonfiction pieces that go on for, you know, thousands of words. Yeah. There. So I think that I have no questions from the listeners, which is.
Well, I wanted to ask you one.
Oh, okay.
Can you talk briefly about the painting on the cover of your book? We've seen it.
Oh, right.
So to some extent, if you have the book, you get to see it better. But just, you know, no, you don't have to explain it. But what inspired it, or what does it mean to you?
So this painting came from a course. I think I mentioned that I owe a debt of gratitude to my art teacher mentor. It's not just art mentoring, it's sort of a broad mentoring, Regina Couric. And I created this and a few other pieces in a course I took with her. And it wasn't originally going to be the cover, but Richard Olafsson at Ecstasis really liked it. And he thought that the layered aspect of it with all these different shapes was perfect for the title Shape Taking. So that's how it got to be on the cover. It was a challenge to reproduce all those colors in it, though, because it is quite bright, even brighter than it came out. But it's a mixed media piece. It's mostly acrylic, but the white that you see in it, these figures, I don't know if you can see with this blur on it, these figures, that's actually very, very, very thin, like rice paper, Japanese rice paper. So yeah, and it was created over weeks, so it's very layered. And yeah, so it's got the mineral in it, it's got the plant, it's got the animal, it's got the figure in it, and it's got that sort of aspect of, you know, maybe the quintessence or the otherness. So I think it's got all those things in it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and yeah, I think that the art, sometimes I compartmentalize and I'll be in this is an art sphere, and I'll just go through a period where I'm just doing the art. But during the pandemic, I think the two have come a lot more together. You know, they just feel like maybe two parts of the well, I guess the hemispheres, right? But the hemispheres meeting at that, what is that? The corpus callosum? Is that what it is? That thick thing that bridges? I think there's been more
Callosum,
of that.
yeah.
Yeah. That's been happening more.
And it's nice of Bambi to play your cover a visit in the lower left corner there.
Yeah. Well, that Bambi is, you know, that's maybe a little nod to the children in the family. Yeah. Thanks. And I guess that's it.
I think it might be.
Shall we fold?
I just want to say hi to Holly before we go.
Oh, you know what? I don't have my gallery, so I just want to see.
Yeah. Hi, Holly.
Hi, Holly.
Hi,
The people.
Hi,
Hi,
Holly.
Holly, and
Good to see
Alan,
you all.
and Elizabeth.
Alan, hello.
Good
Yes.
to be here. Thank you, Elana. It's just
Yeah.
luminescent.
Hi, Ellen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And
Loved
and
reading your
also,
book.
who said that? I didn't hear
Oh,
where that was.
Holly and I have loved reading your book, both of us.
Thank you, Alan. And it was actually
hi,
wonderful
Alan.
to read with you.
Thank
to
you.
read with you,
Thank
Alan.
Elana.
Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Hi,
Yeah,
Janet.
absolutely.
Hi,
Thank you.
Denise.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Congrats
Yeah.
to Elana again for a beautiful, beautiful collection.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And
I,
to
I
the-
see some. Yeah, I see some.
To the
of
generous
my-
way you had us part of your launch.
That's correct.
Yes.
Oh, that's
pleasure.
so amazing.
How
Yeah.
could
Thank
I
you,
not,
Elana.
right? How could I not? I mean, we're really tight, and you're a big part of my writing life, right?
Thank you.
Maybe,
Thank you, Elana.
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
And also, we have technical expertise in our group, thanks to John
Thank God.
and Brenda, because yeah, I'm
my
not
gosh.
strong in that department at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to
Nothing
thank
blew
also.
up.
Pardon me?
Nothing blew up and we didn't get Zoom bombed, so it was a good meeting.
Yeah, we did
That's,
okay.
yeah, that's right. And I see also some colleagues from the Women's Art Association
That's
of
what I was
Canada.
just about to say.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you
Yeah.
for coming.
Mary Lou
Yes.
Pizza.
Hi.
Yeah.
And Janet
Yeah.
Potter.
And Janet,
Yeah.
nice
Yeah.
to see you,
Janet.
Janet.
Thanks. Yes, and JJ Steinfeld, I think you did mention something about Kafka, but I've lost it. JJ, if you take off your mute, you could ask it or say it again. JJ? He's muted.
I can read you what he said in the chat.
Oh, okay, because
Okay. My friend Steinfeld is allowing me to use his fancy schmancy computer to let my Shayna protege Elana, that I simply adored her reading and consider shape taking top shelf. So that was Kafka J. Steinfeld's computer.
well, that sounds very much like JJ. I must say, not much like Franz himself. But I will take it. Thank you, JJ. He's a fellow enthusiast.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording now. So thank you all for
Okay.
coming, and
Thank
thank
you.
all the writers
Thank you so
and poets
much.
for taking part in this.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everybody.
John and
you.
Brenda.
Thank you, John and
John and
Brenda.
Brenda.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Everyone.
yeah.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.